What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and today I'm here to give you some reasons why I believe the Dallas Mavericks championship run 5 years ago is one of the, if not the most underrated playoff run of all time. Normally when a team wins a championship, people celebrate their greatness whether they're a fan or not, at least for a little while, because that team reached the top of the mountain, and their legacy is forever cemented in NBA history whether you like it or not. But for the Mavericks, fortunately or unfortunately, their championship came at the expense of the new look Miami Heat, who are already the most hated team of all time. And for that reason, the Mavericks championship is looked at as a part of the Miami Heat's 4-year story instead of being looked at for all the greatness they accomplished that entire postseason, not just in the NBA Finals. Today, I'm going to try to change that as I show you why there may never be another run specifically like the Dallas Mavericks 2011 run. Number 5. Past failures. Here's a part of the Mavericks story that nobody really ever looks at because, like I said, their run is looked at as more of a part of the Heat story instead of their own. Let's rewind the clock 5 years from the 2011 season, and the Mavericks were looking a lot like the modern day Clippers, to be honest. They were a great regular season team, but could never find a way to put it all together in the playoffs. In 2006, the Mavericks were well on their way to winning the franchise's first NBA title. They'd won 60 games in the regular season, they had one of the best young players in Dirk, who was averaging like 26 points and nearly 8 rebounds. They'd beaten both the defending champion Spurs and the MVP Steve Nash in the same playoffs, and they now held a 2-0 lead with home court advantage over the Miami Heat, winning both 2 games by double digits. However, that's where it all fell apart, as they'd become victim to one of the best finals performances from an up-and-coming D Wade. There would be no Cinderella story for the Mavericks on the hunt for revenge either. You think the 73-win Warriors are bad? How about the 67-win Mavericks, who would go on to be eliminated in just the first round by the AC Warriors, ironically? What makes this worse is that if Dallas had have gone to the finals like they were supposed to that year, they could have easily beaten the Cavs, who were basically composed of LeBrons and a couple of guys from your local YMCA. For 2 of the next 3 seasons, the Mavs would go on to be eliminated in the first round as they gained the reputation of the modern day Clippers. They had a great young superstar, but he just couldn't ever lead his team to the promised land. That, however, all changed in 2011 when the Mavs would make a run and when everyone least expected it, and that's part of what makes the story so unique. It would be exactly like if Chris Paul led the Clippers to a championship this season despite the Spurs, the Warriors, and the Cavs all looming over them. Number 4. No one saw them coming. Okay, so you might argue with me on this one, but the fact is, nobody outside of Dallas was taking the Mavericks seriously that year despite how well they were doing because, like I said, we'd all become quite accustomed to them falling apart in crunch time, but we should have been looking out for them, and here's why. First, they made a key addition that season in Tyson Chandler. Tyson really filled a gap they had been missing down low, as not only was he able to come in and basically average 10 points and 10 rebounds, the energy and defense he brought to the table really gave the Mavericks the key presence they were missing. Dallas incorporated him, and they did a lot of things nobody was paying any attention to, including ending the Miami Heat's early 12-game win streak, ending San Antonio's early 12-game win streak, and they were able to get off to one of their, if not their best franchise start in history at a record of 24-5, going on a 12-game win streak of their own in the process. But here's why nobody was paying attention to that. For one, the 2011 season was focusing on 3 teams mainly. The Boston Celtics, who just suffered crushing defeat in Game 7 of the Finals, the Miami Heat, who were already the most hated team ever in just their first season, and the Lakers, who were looking to get Phil Jackson one more three-peat on his way out the door. So people were either expecting to see a much anticipated Kobe and LeBron Finals or Boston and LA Part 3. Another reason nobody saw them coming was because their great start somewhat fell apart. Dirk would go on to miss 9 games with a knee injury, and their second leading scorer Caron Butler would have to sit out the rest of the season with the torn patella tendon, so absolutely nobody outside of Dallas was willing to give them a shot coming off of injuries and being the team that always lapsed in the playoffs. As Mark Cuban put it when they beat the Thunder in the conference finals,
all I can say is there's 20-some thousand people in this building who believed in us when nobody else did.
Number 3, the amount of adversity they faced. There were times during the Mavericks run where it simply didn't look like they were going to make it, and they had one of these moments in every round of the playoffs. Round 1 versus the Blazers, Portland was seen as the inferior team and should have been an easy put-away for Dallas. However, the Mavs lost Game 3 and lost Game 4 after Brandon Roy basically brought his team back from down 23 points in just the 4th quarter. The crazier thing about this is Roy did this with basically no knees. People took this as a sign that these were the same old Mavericks, awesome in the regular season but falling apart when it mattered most. Dallas, however, came to their senses and ended the series in 6. In the semifinals, the Mavs played the repeat champion Lakers. Dallas lost the season series 2-1, so although they had identical records coming into the playoffs, Los Angeles had home court advantage. It really did look like they were going to use it to bury the Mavs, as they were on top by 16 points in Game 1. The series was beginning to look like a formality for the Lakers on the way to their third title. However, led by Dirk Nowitzki, they would erase that deficit and never look back, sweeping the Lakers. In the conference finals, Dallas was down 15 to the Thunder, who are about to tie the series in Game 4. Dirk again came out with an incredible performance, scoring 11 points in just 3 minutes to give the Mavericks a commanding 3-1 lead in the series that would ultimately let them win it. And finally, against the Heat, they had one of the best comebacks in NBA history, really NBA playoff history, during Game 2, when they were basically dead in the water down by like 15 points as the Heat was celebrating, about to blow them out for the second time and take a 2-0 lead in the finals. This time, the Mavs came back as a team, and Dirk was able to put the finishing touches on the game that basically changed the entire look of the series. Had they have failed in any one of these comebacks, it would have cost them the series, or it really gave them a good chance to lose the series. In any case, that just goes to show how sensitive these matters were, and Dallas really seized the moment. Number 2, nobody in history could have stopped Dirk, and the team ball was incredible. Dirk had a very solid regular season, averaging 23 points and 7 rebounds, but he elevated that in the playoffs, going to nearly 28 and 8. But it wasn't just what he was doing, it was how he was doing it. We've all seen players try to mimic Dirk's patented one-legged follow-away, right? Well, that's with good reason, because Dirk's style of shooting made it so that there really wasn't anything you could do to make this guy uncomfortable. Dirk drove defensives crazy that playoffs, as he was turning, falling, fading, and when you add that to the fact that he's 7 feet tall, you couldn't even reach his shot if you tried. About the only time Dirk was off this playoffs was when he caught the flu in the finals, and they still found a way to pull it off. Dirk never averaged lower than 25 points at playoffs, and it went as high as 32 against the Thunder, where Coach Scott Brooks basically told his team they weren't going to be able to stop him. But aside from Dirk Nowitzki's ridiculous will in this run, his team also doesn't get enough credit. It's true they didn't have another all-star aside from Dirk, but they utilized everybody they had to their best potential. That's the only way they could go up against the teams they did. Check out what I mean, and how dominant the Mavs were at that entire playoffs. A member of the Dallas Mavericks led in 18 statistical categories that were kept in the 2011 playoffs. Some of the most notable ones were that Dirk Nowitzki led in field goals, 2-point field goals, free throws, defensive rebounds, offensive win shares, and points. So yeah, he did a lot, but there was also the fact Jason Kidd and Tyson Chandler also joined him in leading categories of their own. In the closeout game against the Lakers, Peja Stojakovic and Jason Terry absolutely lit the Lakers on fire, scoring 21 and 32 points respectively, and they hit 15 of their attempted 16 3-pointers that night. In the closeout game against the Heat, Dirk couldn't quite get it going as he shot 9 of 27, and again, the Jet was there to light it up, scoring 27 points to finish Miami off, not to mention the incredible 3 he hit in the face of LeBron in Game 5 to seal that game. But let's go ahead and get to the part that you guys probably all came here for, because all the other points I've listed were merely an appetizer. Here's where the Dallas Mavericks deserve the absolute most credit for winning the 2011 NBA championship. Number 1, dominating the incredible competition. In my opinion, this year's Thunder had a great chance to top the Mavericks 2011 run in terms of talent defeated, because had they have won the championship, they would have went through the 67-win Spurs, the 73-win Warriors, and LeBron's Cavs. That would have hands down been the toughest road ever. However, the Mavs run is still standing because, well, the Thunder didn't make it. When you look at the Mavericks, as I've stated before, they only had one All-Star in Dirk. Every team they beat after the first round had more than 2 All-Stars. Let's look at who they beat. First off, they swept, I repeat, swept the repeating champion Los Angeles Lakers, who had home court advantage that series. This means the Mavericks had to take the first 2 games on the road. Most of the time, a team only gets a split on the road, but the Mavericks got the whole thing. If you can't remember how tough these Lakers were, they'd been to the finals for the last 3 straight years before this. They won 57 or more games in all 3 of those seasons, and nobody had really had any kind of luck stopping the combination of Gasol and Kobe once they figured everything out, especially after Artest was thrown into the mix. Next, they took out the up-and-coming Thunder in just 5 games. Yes, I know they were young, but that doesn't change who they were. After adding Kendrick Perkins, who was still relevant at the time, the Thunder had seemed ready to get over that hump, as Durant was already a 2-time scoring champ, averaging 27 points that season. Westbrook was averaging 21 points and 8 assists, and this was back when they still had James Harden. Harden obviously wasn't a star yet, I get that, but he was still an integral part of what they were doing. And remember what I said earlier, the Thunder led by 15 points in Game 4. That series could have easily been tied, and who knows how it would have turned out from there. Finally, the NBA Finals, where yes, the Mavericks were the underdogs. I don't know what it is where these years pass and people seem to totally forget how things were, because in hindsight, people begin to switch the narrative as if Dallas was expected to beat Miami in 2011. No, that's not how it was at all back then. See, after the Heat joined the Big Three, they struggled to start the season, but they still ended up in the second seed behind Chicago, and they destroyed the teams that people thought that would be a problem for them. We said the Celtics would beat them, they were disposed of in 5. We said that they wouldn't be so lucky against Chicago because Boston was just injured. They took Chicago out in 5 even though they had home court advantage. By the time we got into the finals, the dream had all but come together for Miami. The Heat easily won Game 1, and they were easily winning Game 2 until that massive comeback happened. Dirk once again became unguardable, the Mavs played incredible as a team, they played great team defense and team basketball in general, and were able to beat the Heat in 6 games, completing one of the roughest patches in NBA history with a great record, by the way. When it was all said and done, the Mavs had only lost a total of 3 games in the West and then 2 in the finals, despite facing about 7 All-Star players in total. The Mavs made it through Kobe and Gasol, KD and Westbrook, and Harden if you want to throw him in there, then LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh on the same team. When you see it all on one page, it really just speaks for itself. And so, there it is. Everything I listed goes into why I think the Mavs have one of the, if not the most amazing championship runs of all time. Regardless of if you think that or not, it's definitely underrated because all anybody remembers about the Mavs story is that they sent the Big Three home crying. The sad thing is, this doesn't really get put in the Mavs legacy as it should. Instead, it goes on to the Heat's legacy. People speak of this run as something Miami experienced in their 4-year title run instead of the incredible story that Dallas put together. Nobody talks about how much failure the Mavs had to go through in the preceding seasons when people had finally given up on them ever reaching the top, and nobody ever talks about the ridiculous amount of talent they basically dominated on their way to doing it. I think it's because people end up feeling like, well, what have you done for me lately? To the Heat's credit, they did keep their story going past 2011, where it seems that the run took everything out of the Mavericks, seeing that they never even got close to that level again. But what they did in the years after that really shouldn't matter when you're talking about that 2011 championship run, because that year they were the NBA champions. They did go through one of the toughest runs possible, and nobody will ever be able to take that from them. I'm Dom2K, and that's why I think the Mavericks had one of the best finals runs in NBA history.